Silence for 3 seconds.
You know, in our 20s, it often feels like there's a script. A certain momentum just seems to carry us through a decade of accumulation, of chasing the things we're told are supposed to matter.
Life can become this collection of impressive titles and experiences, things that look really good from the outside. It's just this constant forward motion toward, well, somewhere. But then, usually pretty quietly, in the background, something shifts. The rules of the game just completely change. A realization starts to dawn on you that life is no longer about checking off boxes. It starts to be about building foundations. It's a funny thing how so many of us can spend years just climbing and climbing, only to finally look up and see that the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall the entire time. And this is when time itself starts to feel, well, different. There's this dawning awareness of it, that it's finite, and you start to notice the quiet, almost invisible power of compounding. All of a sudden, the smallest seeds you plant right now, they feel like they could actually become the trees that offer shade decades later. So the focus shifts from these big, grand gestures to small, consistent actions. It's a strange kind of math, really. Someone who begins saving at 35 has to contribute nearly twice as much as someone who started at 25 just to reach the same place. Time, it turns out, is the most powerful variable of all. And this isn't just about finances. It applies to everything, to knowledge, to health, to relationships. These small inputs, the ones you can barely notice day to day, they're what create these vast differences over the decades. It's a very human thing, isn't it? To obsess over the small details, to research the absolute best umbrella while the roof over your head has a massive hole in it. We optimize for a tiny return while ignoring the big, foundational things we aren't doing at all.
And so, the search starts to turn inward. A career path becomes less about following society's script and way more about finding a personal definition of success.
You know, there's a subtle danger in staying in a role that just isn't aligned with who you are. We often avoid the risk of leaving, but we forget that staying is its own quiet risk. It's been compared to slowly dehydrating in a desert just to avoid the possibility of drowning in the ocean. And then there's that feeling of alignment. When passion meets purpose, the very nature of work itself seems to transform. Suddenly, Monday mornings change from something you dread into a source of energy. It's like following a treasure map, doing everything right step by step, only to open the chest and find it's filled with someone else's treasure. Interesting, maybe, but in the end, unfulfilling.
This same shift happens with our relationships. We enter our 30s with this collection of connections, some by choice, some by circumstance. And then, a curation seems to begin.
Social circles often seem to get smaller, and it doesn't feel like something to be fought against, but more like a shift to be leaned into with intention. A move from quantity to quality. Letting go of unfulfilling connections, it stops feeling like a failure. It actually starts to feel like growth, like you're creating space for the connections that truly nourish you. There was a Harvard study that followed people for over 80 years, and it found the single biggest predictor of health and happiness wasn't money, it wasn't achievement, it was the quality of our close relationships. And all of these little shifts, they begin to synthesize. You start moving towards a quieter, more integrated way of being. You start to realize that life's different areas, health, money, career, they're not separate. They're like instruments in an orchestra. And the goal isn't to perfect any single one, but to create harmony across all of them. This decade often becomes the time of shedding, of letting go of the habits, the beliefs, the obligations, all the things that no longer serve the person you're becoming. The goal shifts away from perfection. It becomes more about acting from a place of genuine care for your future self. And so you see, the 30s aren't about having it all figured out. Not at all. They're about figuring out what actually deserves our precious time and our energy.
So the question then isn't whether you're doing this decade right. Perhaps the real question is, are you building a life that your 80-year-old self will thank you for?